meantime, let's also get you this another round of breaking update. What we are now learning in the Strait of Hormuz, that has been the talking point. And here is where the China factor also comes in. There is an Iranian ship called Tuska, and that has now been seized by the US Marines following a 6-hour standoff near the Strait of Hormuz. Apparently, it made multiple visits to Chinese ports, citing shipping data. Now, when it comes to the US forces, it tracked and it boarded the seized Iranian cargo vessel near the Strait of Hormuz. And the United States says that it fired on the ship and seized it because it crossed the blockade line after ignoring multiple warnings. And this was the same ship that was sanctioned before and was said to be docked at a port near Shanghai. So this seems to be, as far as the ship now making its way back to Iran, one of the Iranian port, which is Bandar Abbas, is something which the US military has now come out to say that it was, lawfully right because there is a US naval blockade in place. But will it hamper or will it affect the US, will it affect when it comes to the China and the Iranian bilateral relations? Because Srinjoy, this seems to be the very factor there. Any ship entry or exit has been blocked by the US Navy.
Yes, the Chinese and the Iranians are very close. They have a strong strategic relationship, a strong economic relationship. Now, China buys a lot of Iranian oil, or has bought enormous amounts till the blockade came. On the other hand, China is the world's factory, and China sells lots and lots of goods to the Iranians, as it does to America and many other countries in the world. There's no dispute on that one. Now, this is a strong relationship. Iran has very strong relationships with China and Russia. If you remember the UN Security Council resolution, that was voted down, vetoed by 2 countries, Russia, China, and both are permanent members of the UN Security Council. Now, when you have 2 permanent members of the UN Security Council on your side during a resolution on issues that relate to the Iran-USA war, then clearly you have a benefit going for you. The other thing, of course, is Iran sells a large amount of weapons, mostly kamikaze drones, to the Iranians, to the Russians. And those drones have been used in the war against Ukraine extensively. Russia also is an oil producer.
Yes.
And if Iran fails, Iranian oil fails to go to China, then Russia can step in.
Well, Russia has been stepping in as far as when it comes to the purchase of Russian oil is concerned, because that is the kind of waiver that has also come in the way for India. Much needed relief in the time of the crisis that still continue, because Indian ships have also been at the end of this firing that has been now reported at the Strait of Hormuz, and it has been strongly raised on part of the Indian side of the government as well with the Iranian counterparts. Let's in the meantime also talk about in the second week of the naval blockade, of the US naval blockade, nearly 27 ships have been turned back by the US Navy. Now, as far as this sanctioned Iranian ship is concerned, this is Tuska, and it has now been said that it was seized by the US Navy. And when it comes to the seizure is concerned, that happened near the Gulf of Oman, because the ship actually attempted to evade the blockade and it was headed to an Iranian port, which is Bandar Abbas. Now, this seems to be the operation which the US Marines, in his the Central Command, also sharing videos of the same. They have been now saying that the US Marines boarded the ship, around 5,000 containers. It's a cargo ship that was checked and thereafter disabled before any seizure. And as far as the route of this very ship is now concerned, because it was headed towards Bandar Abbas, it was actually coming in from Shanghai port in China. From there, it made a brief pit stop in Malaysia, and from thereafter, it was making its way to Bandar Abbas, which is in the Iranian waters, in the Iranian port. And thereafter, what the US Navy says that it has lawfully blocked the very ship. Now, in the meantime, let's get you another round of breaking update. What we are now learning, that Nikki Haley has now claimed that the Iranian cargo ship Tuska that has been seized by the US forces near the Strait of Hormuz was carrying materials linked to missile-related chemical shipments from China to Iran. and had ignored repeated orders to stop before being boarded. Now, this seems to be the justification on part of the US administration, which is now of the opinion as to why the seizure of the Iranian ship was necessary by the US military. Nikki Haley coming out to say that the ship of the US seized in the Strait of Hormuz this weekend was headed from China to Iran and is linked to chemical shipments for missiles. It refused repeated orders to stop. Another reminder that China is helping prop up Iran's regime, which is a reality that cannot be ignored. So as far as the direct face-off with China here is concerned, because the US is now mentioning China and the kind of aid and help that China continues to give to Iran, one of the biggest purchasers of the Iranian oil, is also concerned. And previously, there were Chinese ships as well that were asked to return on part of the US naval blockade. That may escalate when it comes to the tensions in the region, because Mayank, China had come out to clearly said that when it comes to its relations with Iran, bilateral relations with Iran should not be hampered and should not be interfered by the US.
So the countries like China, Iran and even Russia, let me bring that also, they share a very deep relationship, and that was reflected in when even sanctions were or discussion on Iran was taking place in UN Security Council, because these two P2, which is permanent to part of the P5, they had voted in favor of Iran or against the motion which was moved. Imagine. So having said that, in terms of business relationship also, or economic trade relationship also, Iran has been playing a very significant role. I'll come to a third part, which is even more important. In business terms, Iran had been playing a very significant role as far as energy security of China is concerned, which happens to be the manufacturing factory of the world. So that is the kind of relationship they both share. The third point I need to bring out, and we had been time and again repeating this aspect, is that there has been some confusion with regards to the ballistic missile capability, or rather missile programs of Iran is concerned and drone programs of Iran is concerned. There had been a major technological exchanges between the countries like China, Iran, and Russia. And that you can see when our colleague Sanjay has already brought out the kind of sophistication the drone has.
The US has now come out in a way to justify as to why the seizure of this cargo ship was necessary, and it believes that certain chemicals and other substances from China were being transported in Iran, which would actually help its ballistic missile program, and that too to be used against the US and its allies. Thank you very much for the moment, Mayank and Sanjay, for joining us here on the broadcast. Those were the war updates in the front that happens, a deal or actually no deal. Well, time will only tell in the next coming 24 hours, as the talks in Islamabad are expected to happen tomorrow.